Okay, so skipped forward a little bit past the brush leopard attack. And now we got a question.
Are you going to be afraid to go on walks going forward?
I thought about that for a minute. I mean, that had been frightening for sure. Especially thinking about what could have happened if Lance had been a second too late. Or if his arms weren't cybernetics that could be repaired. One or both of us could have been seriously harmed. Or killed. I'm definitely a little shaken up by that. But compared to some of the other things I've gone through, it feels almost minor. I gave him a weak smile. I don't think I'm frightened enough to hide inside forever. Maybe just a little while. I thought I saw something before the leopard attacked. Is there something out there? A structure of some kind? Okay, are we back? Not yet.
I don't know. I haven't explored that area during the time I've lived out here. There are other places that pique my interest more, and I prefer open spaces. Much of that area is closed in. You think you saw a structure?
I only got a glimpse through that opening I was near, so I can't say for sure. But I thought I saw something that was too, well, straight to be a natural formation.
The only way to find out is to go back and have a look.
As long as we're more cautious than we have been until now. Even if you think that brush leopard was passing through, I'd rather not take chances. We might not be so lucky next time. And I want to make sure my leg is better first.
That won't be a problem. Now you have me curious about what we might find too.
Alright. We got a plan. He wasn't wrong that I had been a little hesitant to come back. But as I told him the day the attack happened, I had to know for sure what I saw. It might just be a strange rock formation, but if I left the ways without checking, I would always wonder. Alright. Here we go. We'd be checking. I think we did the confident one last time, so we'll do, according to my notes, is it emotional? Yes, it is emotional. Well, war is always like that, isn't it? It destroys more than it can ever build, even if it's a war where one side clearly has a just cause. The loss of life, the loss of culture and history. You only ever hope what you save outweighs what you lose. Though that's coming from someone who has never experienced a war, so maybe it's idealistic.
No, it's not idealistic at all. I've seen war. I've fought in them. Large ones where the planet was at stake, and small ones between rival families in Delphine. You always hope what you're gaining is more than what you lose, but it's hard to quantify what others are losing in the process.
That made me stop examining what I thought was a crumbled wall and look at him with surprise. There was only one thing he could be referring to by rival families. The Delphinian underworld. It was notorious even on the day side. You were involved with families in Delphine? Or do you mean you just watched sort of from the side?
Well, I suppose it was something I didn't necessarily want you to know about. But I was born into it and raised within it, so there wasn't an escape. That life doesn't easily let go once it has a hold on you. A lot of times there's no escape unless you die. Which I did, in a way.
I stood and dusted my knees off, shaking my head. I can't imagine you in the Mafia, to be honest. Didn't you say you enjoyed gardening back then?
Being the son of a mafioso doesn't mean I couldn't have hobbies.
I suppose that's true, though gardening is still an unexpected one.
That wasn't a lifestyle I enjoyed. My father as well. Despite leading the most powerful crime family on the planet and having no intentions of relinquishing that, I'm not sure it's the life he'd have chosen were he given the choice.
Wait a minute. Are you implying your father was the leader of Crimson?
I feel a little bad since I know they were among those looking for you that day. Under my father's orders, no doubt. That's one reason I didn't mention it until now.
I don't even know what to say to that.
I'm sorry I didn't mention it sooner. I wasn't trying to hide it, but it was a little difficult to bring up.
I'm not upset, just surprised. You're the son of the leader of Crimson, the eldest son? Were you going to, like, take over one day?
That was the plan, before everything else happened.
And now you're just living the waste alone with your little greenhouse, finding mysterious ruins with the girl you rescued. That's amazing, in a way.
Life is strange sometimes.
Ayy. Strange feels like a massive understatement. Today is just full of surprises, isn't it?
It is, a little.
He'd really led the most incredible life, hadn't he? You can say that again. Alright. Music change, so that's always a good indication. What am I doing now? Okay, we're being emotional. What was the... Oh yeah, we're all connected. Well, it would be nice if it were true anyway. Maybe I'm so intent on studying the past, not because I believe it, but because I desperately want to. That I can find meaning if I can prove everything is tied together in some sort of bigger image. That every piece of history has its place, its purpose to serve. Even me. Learning more about where we came from, what paths we've walked in the past. I want to believe the more I know about that, the more I'll be able to figure out where we're going.
I see.
I felt my face get a little hot because I'd never expressed something like this to anyone before. Never laid my motivations bare in such an open manner. And Lance said nothing. He just seemed thoughtful about it for a long time. And I suppose it was a little silly to imagine I'd somehow find my identity in the ancient history of a world my people hadn't even known about just a few centuries ago. Okay, kind of nice to get like some motivation from Morgan about like why she's interested in history. But Lance would never say that, even if he felt that way.
I think it's natural for people to want to make connections. With each other, with the world around them. Everyone finds a way to do it that makes the most sense to them.
I guess you're right. None of us is meant for isolation. But we all seek those connections in different ways.
Your way is pleasant, though. Connecting to others through a shared history is a beautiful sentiment.
I didn't know about beautiful, but it was nice that he didn't think it was completely out there anyway.
I'll take it. Morgan, you don't have to go back. Not if you don't want to.
For a minute, it was as if the breath left my body, hearing that stated out loud. Lance had invited me to stay with him before, but only for a while, an indefinite period for my safety. But I'd always been planning to go back eventually, when I was recovered, when I learned to use my abilities. And now he was saying I didn't have to go back at all. I stared at the horizon, wondering if that was even possible. Lance would never make me leave or ask me to leave. That was obvious already. But could I really live out here? Are we... Okay, this is all different. I thought so.
Morgan, from the beginning, you've tried to set time limits for yourself on going back. There's no reason to do that. You can stay here as long as you need or want.
The longer I stay, the harder it'll be to go back. I keep feeling like things are waiting for me. But was that even true? I could never return to school. It really didn't matter where I tried to land when I went back. Endgame or somewhere else. A degree in archaeology out of reach. The only thing waiting for me was a reckoning regarding my abilities. I let out a long sigh, tension fleeing me for the first time in a while. I had been assuming I would go back and that I needed to do it as soon as possible. The thought of doing it had dominated everything I'd done to this point. Maybe I'd been holding on to a hope that I could return to my normal life there. Finally acknowledging that would never happen was a weight off. It was also heartbreaking, but letting go of that idea was like a release. I turned to Lance, a sad smile coming to my face. Then I'll stay. for the foreseeable future. I'll stop talking about going back.
I'm glad. I would miss you if you left.
After that decision, it was like the air had cleared somewhat. Alright. And how does some Mafia prince learn to cook so well anyway?
Mafia Prince? That's the first time I've ever been called that.
Isn't that what you are?
At best, that's what I was. And I have lived on my own for 10 years. Eventually, one has to learn to cook.
Well, that's true. I learned to cook because I had to live on my own, though I doubt I'm as good as you. But you could at least let me help, you know.
Then, starting from tomorrow, I'll let you be my assistant.
Nice. Mafia Prince is great. Ah, the weather planes. Oh my god, when did you become this intent on hijacking other people's equipment?
Just trying to be of service.
Is that criminal past of yours resurfacing with a vengeance? Do I need to be worried it's going to become a trend?
I believe I was a shining beacon in that family.
I love that this sweet end is more her teasing him about his mafioso background. That's great. How many times did you hijack satellites to spy on people for Crimson? He gave me a cheeky grin and did not respond.
I still think it's a fantastic idea.
Or we could, and hear me out on this, just climb one of the nearby hills. What do you think? I just hope I don't come across like an idiot, or make them think badly of people in the domes. We may not interact much, but we do share a planet.
This isn't exactly a first contact situation, Morgan. I'm from the domes too.
You're a special case, as I'm sure you can understand.
They engage in trade relations with some of the more isolated domes, such as Esper, for instance.
I didn't think they ever dealt with people from the domes at all. That was a relief to hear. At the very least, it made me feel less like a very underprepared representative for the Triad or something. Yeah, you've been in those shoes before. Not that I was anything like that in the first place.
They just avoid the bigger nations, since they don't want to encourage incursions into the space. With the ongoing tensions between day and night, fighting is inevitable. Best not to encourage it. Sometimes if you give people what they perceive as an opening, you find yourself regretting it.
That makes sense. I guess it's just easy to build up some huge mystery around something you don't understand well. Okay, we're back. Grand. It's a long story about how I got here. Not like we don't have time. I hesitated, unsure if I should share it, and unsure how to make it sound like it wasn't made up. On one hand, it wasn't like my background was a secret. And even if they knew the truth, who would they tell? I couldn't imagine they'd contact Endgame on the sly and tell them where the rogue queen went. Especially if they were aware who Lance was, though I was only assuming they did. He said the Nomos knew who he was. That couldn't mean all of them. But if this group knew him that well, they surely did. I must have looked troubled. Eden gave me an easy smile over his shoulder.
You don't have to talk about it if you don't want. We don't get a lot of refugees from the domes out here. Most of them get picked up by Endgame and returned. But the ones who do make it out this far often have stories they don't want to tell. We get it.
It's not just that. The more I go over it in my head, the more it sounds like the plot of a movie rather than something that really happened. I suppose the simplified version is that I was being pursued by people who found out I'm an Esper, and I ended up teleporting myself to a random location for my safety. Except it was my first time using teleportation, so I wasn't able to pinpoint a specific place. Since I was in a tunnel between domes, I teleported myself into a drainage system and from there wandered to the outside. That was where Lance found me. I think? Yeah, this is still different. An Esper seeking refuge in the wilds. That does sound like it would make a great movie.
I think I've seen one like that.
More than one. Some directors have a slight obsession with Espers. I had no idea there was entertainment industry in the waste, to be honest. But of course, why wouldn't there be? It would probably be weirder if there wasn't.
So you can use Psi. That's pretty amazing.
I flicked a hand towards a nearby rock, lifting it to eye level.
Whoa.
Alright, there we go. Alright, this time we are gonna be stubborn and be like, I want my recognition, girl. I was a little surprised at the sudden shift in tone at Lynette's voice. Her question was almost accusatory. Was it such a bad thing to want recognition? I suppose I want some recognition, yes. Doesn't everyone? I don't know about everyone. Our philosophy is a bit different anyway. For instance, rather than recognition and accolades, we're much more focused on learning about the ancient societies that lived here. Especially in situations like this where the location was found due to happenstance. I frowned, not liking how she worded that. I didn't want accolades, but wasn't it natural to be recognized for your work?
We don't like talking about finding the locations either. They're not really lost. They're exactly where they're supposed to be. We document them, contextualize them. We don't discover them.
You can't document a place if you don't know it exists. They still have to be rediscovered. Even if it's by happenstance. Isn't it natural to get recognized for work? Did you really work to find this site? I walked to get here and almost got attacked in the process, yes. And if I hadn't, no one would have learned it was here. Not to mention the hell I went through to end up in the waste in the first place. If I hadn't survived that, this place would stay hidden and no one would be able to learn anything from it at all. But somehow I was wrong to be disappointed no one I cared about would ever hear about it. I worked damn hard towards my degree, a degree I'd never get, and this was probably the only chance I'd ever get to do anything like this.
We're not trying to diminish what happened, Morgan. It's just that we don't look at this in terms of getting merits for finding it.
My throat tightened, and I tried to keep my voice steady when I responded to him. They both seemed nice, but this conversation had gone a frustrating direction. In New Albion, everything is about proving your merits, proving you're contributing. People who don't contribute aren't viewed in a positive light, and getting appropriate credit for what you do is essential to showing your contributions. I knew my tone was a little defensive, but I hated that sickly feeling of having ulterior motives for my excitement. That wasn't the case at all. You can't even continue with your education without constant exams and proving yourself worthy. Achievements and recognition for those achievements is everything there. Everything. I guess I can understand if that's the culture you grew up in. I didn't mean to sound as if I was looking down on you.
New Albion sounds tough, though.
You won't hear me say it wasn't. It was exhausting. And stressful. And I guess that mentality gets further ingrained in you than you realize. The day before I was attacked, I'd just finished an exam. I was stressed about it for weeks, studying non-stop, barely sleeping. All so I could score in the top percentile so I could stay in school. Because otherwise, they send you to the workforce and your opportunities stagnate.
Are all the domes like that? I mean, every country?
No. New Albion's pretty known for its cutthroat meritocracy. Remind me never to go there.
Look, if it helps at all, you'll be listed as the person who first documented this site in our archives. Probably not the same as recognition by, I don't know, your school? The New Albion Science Board? Or whoever? It's not like we don't recognize people for their contributions and force everyone into obscurity.
Of course it helps. And look, it's not like I'm seeking fame here. It's not as if digging up ancient ruins turns anyone into a celebrity. I just think it would be nice if some of my professors knew. I think they'd be proud.
You can't say for sure that you'll never be able to tell them about it, right?
That would all just depend on whether I went back, I suppose. Not yet. Maybe they'll let you assist with the site, or at least hang out with us here. You're so close by, and you were the first to make note of it. That would be great. I'm not sure how much help I'd be, since I don't have any field training yet. Nope, still not yet. Pfft. If you can use your Psi to lift some of those heavy stones that have fallen over, that'd be a massive help. I bet getting any big equipment in there is going to be a colossal pain. Oh! I didn't even think about it from that perspective. I could probably help with that sort of thing. Wait, come to think of it. I hadn't even considered the possibility of using my Psi while looking around this place. With my sphere, shouldn't I be able to look inside the structure? It didn't even occur to me. How could it not occur to me? I really need to get used to the fact I'm not a normal person anymore. Nope.
Well, we can always put it up as a suggestion. We can't make any promises, though, since we're not the ones in charge.
That sounds great.
We should head back soon. I can't imagine what Virio and Lance are getting up to.
Yeah, I thought they were going to catch up to us at some point. Okay, there we go. As she told the story, Virio disputed her account of the events. Then one of their other assistants chimed in, starting a lively debate about the exact details of what happened. As Eden tried to mediate between the two of them, I looked across to where he was sitting and shared a laugh with Lance. Okay, no snuggling. The two of them had gone on a complete tangent, and Eden had clearly given up trying to intervene.
They never listen to me.
Lance beckoned the two of us, and we got up to move next to him.
I'm sorry they get into it every single time we visit.
Oh, was she sitting with them instead of Lance? Interesting.
I don't mind. It's quite entertaining to listen to them. Yeah, you can say that because you only hear it when we visit. I hear it all the time. You could visit more often. With the site Morgan informed us about, that's likely.
I'm looking forward to it.
I'm just hoping the storm season allows us to work on it without frequent interruptions.
Storm season? That sounds ominous.
Well, they've been predicting a worse season than normal this year. Do you not get any sort of weather forecast inside the domes?
I'm certain there are people who monitor the outside weather, but we don't hear about it unless it's something that disrupts systems, which is pretty uncommon. Outside weather is mostly irrelevant to life inside the domes, and all our internal weather is simulated, and it's very mild.
Must have been a shock for you when you came out here, then.
To say the least. My first sand flare was a couple of weeks ago, and I'm ashamed to say I didn't handle it with an extreme amount of grace.
She handled it fine. After experiencing a few more of them, they won't bother you at all anymore. Especially if they are worse than usual this year. I know your temporary habitats are sturdy, but if at any point you need a place to stay, I'm sure we can find space for your team here as well. It'll be nice to know that on the off chance there's a really severe storm. You know how it can get.
Now the two of you are making me nervous.
I think you'll handle it fine.
Just one of many new experiences, I suppose. So I'm not complaining.
In the worst case scenario, there is an underground shelter beneath the house, but I've never needed to use it for anything other than storage.
Well, you'll find me hiding down there if any of the storms get too bad.
I'll hide there with you to keep you company.
Aw, thanks. That's sweet. Whoops. Virio and his group stayed a while longer. Lance offered them to stay the night if they wanted. He assured them there was space, though I was certain they already knew it. Virio said they'd take turns driving to one of their base camps that was a few hours away. They wanted to get back while the weather held. Interesting. This is new, apparently. Apparently, the desert was unpredictable and even small dust storms were a nightmare for travel. That I could understand. I was sad to see the group go after such a short meeting, but they assured me they'd be back soon enough. We also planned for Lance to send the report I was working on when it was done, as well as the images we had and everything else about the new site. And they were gone. She still has her bun. By that time, it was pretty late, and I was yawning and doing my best to stay awake. I had enough time for a shower to wash the sand off before going to fall into bed thinking it had been another good day. A very good one. Maybe there really was a place for me out here. Not just as a hiding spot or self-exile to avoid the people who wanted to find me. Maybe as a place I could actually build something. Maybe I was already doing that. Alright. Another chapter. Here we go. Oh, this one. Last time I got myself into some trouble. What am I doing this time? I'm cautious. It's too dang risky. And waiting was the safest option. I'd been practicing with Psy, but I was hardly a pro at it yet. I had learned that being able to visualize something was the most important thing to being able to do it. But that didn't mean just because I could visualize something, it would work. I could visualize numerous ways to get up there, but experimenting with my safety seemed like a bad idea. Way too much might go wrong. I didn't think I should risk it. Not when I was alone, anyway. If Lance was with me, maybe I would try it. He'd be able to talk me through the process. But alone? Nah. Yeah, let's not. Instead, I couldn't scale that enormous rock face, but that lower area, I would be able to at least scramble my way up that. It wouldn't be the same as looking from directly above, but it was a higher elevation than the ground. Good enough for now. I trotted over and climbed up on the lowest of the large flat rocks. The one next to it was, 2 meters higher? There was a sharp slope up, but no place to hold on and pull myself up. Right. Throw off the shirt! I tossed my notebook up to the top, then shed the loose outer garment I was wearing, quickly tucking it in a crevice so it wouldn't blow away. Good thinking. There was nothing to grab onto, but the stone itself was rough, so that at least added some traction. There was no way to make it up the incline on 2 feet, but if I went on all 4s, maybe? It took 3 attempts after I slid back down twice and got a lovely scrape on my elbow in the process. But what was the point if you didn't get at least a few bumps and bruises along the way? After I made it up and was able to survey the area from a higher level, I was glad I'd managed it. It would have been nice to get up to the top of the hill, but even from up here I had a better view of the layout of the wall. I sat down and started sketching out the area in front of me. I also took photos, of course, but with the sketch I could make notes about what I saw. Hopefully Vireo and the others would find this useful, and if not, I was still enjoying it. I wasn't sure how long I sat there marking things down, listening to the wind and the call of a few faraway birds. Long enough to get a quick message from Lance that he sent over the secure network he'd created. He said a dust storm was on its way and I should head back. He also said he'd open up a way for me to respond to him, so I sent a message I was on my way back. Getting down wasn't as bad as climbing up, but I had to sit and sort of scoot down on my butt while holding onto my notebook. By the time I was yanking on my mantle and retreating to the caves, it felt like the wind had noticeably picked up. I quickened my pace, hoping I made it back before the storm arrived. He had said it was a dust storm, not another sand flare, but still. When I cleared the small hills, I saw Lance was coming to meet me. It was amazing how far you could see when the view was unobstructed. I wasn't quite used to that wide open view yet. A pair of honey-eaters, looking for shelter before the storm arrived, flew overhead at one point, letting out their usual mournful calls. What are these? These medium-sized native birds with their drab plumage are known to feed on nectar and fruit. They live in the twilight wastes and are non-migratory, rarely venturing far from the region of their birth. They make a very distinctive wailing call that the Nomos say usually precedes a sand flare. Their dwellings are usually low-lying shrubs, and they are known to fiercely guard their nest from any number of predators, including a variety of egg-eating snakes and lizards. Because they are very effective pollinators, they are among many birds that are kept inside the dome cities as part of the ecosystems that fuel the bioregenerative life support. Oh, okay. Interesting. For a moment, unmindful of the growing wind, I tracked their movement across the sky. A gust of hot wind rushed over me, reminding me I needed to get home. I broke into a jog until I caught up to Lance, and we went the rest of the way together. By the time we were back, we were having to cover our noses and mouths with our clothes to keep the dust out.
I'm glad it was a productive day. I was a little worried about you going on your own, but...
Birds have to leave the nest eventually, right? Brief surprise flashed over his face, then a smile.
I suppose that is an apt metaphor. I'm certain Vireo and others will find your work very helpful.
I hope so. It feels good to be working on this. I was hoping I could tell my parents about it at some point.
I don't see why you can't mention it. How is your family doing anyway?
Same as always. Mom is worrying about me being stuck out here, but understands why returning now would be a problem. They're keeping close watch on Sierra now that violence has broken out there again.
Ah, yes, your brother. Is he safe?
Are we... Oops. Okay. Satisfied. Okay, if she hadn't come here...
Are you satisfied with it, even if it's not what you hoped for?
Satisfied? Yes. I believe I can say that. It just makes me angry that it was forced on me. Even the opportunities here and the amazing things I've experienced, and the people I've met, can't erase that initial helpless feeling of not being able to choose. Of having other things ripped away from me. I was in a dark place for a while when I first came here, and I finally clawed my way out of it with your help. But part of me is still so angry I had to endure that fear, that pain. I still wish I could get everyone involved in the whole thing here so I can just smack their stupid heads together.
Oh dear. Usually I can't condone violence, but I admit those in charge of Nyx maybe deserve at least that much.
Anyway, we've talked about my day and my rants, but you haven't told me what you were up to while I was out. It must have been nice to have the house to yourself again after so long.
It was a little nostalgic.
Interesting. He didn't say, like, I missed you. He's like, yeah, I was nostalgic. I settled back against the cushions, gaze going to the window where the light was almost completely blotted out with the storm. I wondered if we'd be picking up debris again tomorrow. Sketchbook? Oh, right. Okay, so we're seeing the sketchbook. I had Morgan meet Kesa in the common route, so I'm curious if she'll make a comment here this time. Okay, so there's a resemblance to Karis. Though, given who his father was, I suppose that made sense. I couldn't expect the leader of a crime organization to look kind. In that position, kindness was probably a liability anyway. If Lance had stayed there, perhaps the kindness would be gone from his face as well by now. There was another person who showed up even more frequently than Lance's father, though. A young man with shoulder-length hair and a gentle, serious face. Lance drew him a lot. I recognized him right away, the man I'd met in New Albion that day. This is your brother, isn't it?
Yes.
You draw him often.
Kesa's on my mind frequently.
He favors your father around the eyes a little.
He does. Though he and I look nothing alike.
That happens sometimes. Oliver doesn't seem to look like anyone in the family. Meanwhile, Brian looks just like our father.
And you?
A little of both. You miss Kesa a lot, don't you?
Well, I had a hand in raising him after all. When he first came to us, Father was afraid to show him much affection.
Why would that be the case?
He saw how it sometimes made me a target for people who wanted to get at him, and neither of us wanted that for Kesa. So I was the one who cared for him much of the time. I still worry about him a lot. I check in sometimes, just watching him from afar. He has good people around him, but I wish Father could find it in himself to tell Kesa how much he loves him. It's difficult to watch that struggle from far away.
Wonder what Lance's thoughts were when Morgan was part of Crimson for that time. If he was like, come on Morgan, help my brother out. I knew Lance had already decided to not contact them. Looking at these drawings made me wish I could change his mind on it, though. It was obvious how much he still loved them, in spite of who they might be to the rest of the world. And then, it's me!
I really haven't captured you at all. I'll get it right one day, though.
It already looks good to me. I'm not sure what to expect when you feel you finally got it right. He laughed and pulled me to him for a brief hug.
I don't know what it'll look like then either. But perhaps I should get you to sit for me instead of me just trying to draw you by memory. If this storm keeps up, we may have plenty of time for it.
You can draw me like one of your French girls, Lance. Sorry. Not sorry. I've never sat for art before. I don't think anyone has ever wanted me to. Not that they've told me, anyway.
It mostly just involves trying to be still.
Sounds exciting.
I think the exciting part is most likely seeing the result. I'm sure the process is boring for a model.
Do you expect the storm to last that long? Lance glanced out the window.
Well, I checked the weather reports and they're expecting this one to go all night and into tomorrow. That's not too bad, really. The longest I remember was almost a week. In some regions, they can last a month.
A month-long dust storm?
Well, the domes exist for a reason. The areas most prone to the storms aren't inhabited by much of anything.
Sometimes I'm astonished and mortified by how little I know of this planet.
I think it's human nature that, as time goes on, people selectively learn what they need to know. And one person can never learn all there is to know. Given your area of interest, I imagine you know more about Dione than many people in Arcalis.
Well, that's true. I guess it is natural to learn in the direction of one's interests. The weather on Dione can be quite volatile as well. There's a whole training simulation you have to go through before you can be assigned to a team headed there. I hadn't experienced that before coming out here. I think it would have helped a lot. But I suppose it's good to have a rest day on occasion anyway.
You seem the sort to push yourself into the point you're forced to take a rest.
Says the person who I'm pretty sure almost never sleeps.
I forget I need it. I've been much better in that regard since you arrived.
I'm glad to hear my coming here has had at least some positive impact.
Probably a little more positive impact than just reminding me to sleep. But since it is quite late...
Okay, I'm going. I shall dutifully get the best night's sleep I can manage.
I'll see you in the morning.
I wonder if this was the night that they, he came and hung out with her in bed for a while? We said goodnight, and I crawled into bed a short time later, falling asleep almost as soon as my head hit the pillow.